Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boss Talks, a show where we really like to elevate all the bosses of the multifamily industry. Today, we have a great guest, Teddy Abdelmalek, and he is somebody that's been in the student housing industry for quite a while, since about 2002. He's currently doing business development for now Campus Life and Style, and he's based out of the Midwest in the state of Kansas. And he's a lot of great things to share. I'm excited to have him. Before we get there, though, I'm your host, Evan Happel. I'm with Community Boss. We have some great property management solutions when it comes to prop tech, managing all your physical aspects of your community, whether that's parking, amenities, or mapping. We got you covered. So check us out. But with that being said, let's bring Teddy to the show.
Hello.
All right.
Good afternoon. How are you, Evan?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have you. We got a watcher. We got Terrence on the show. Looks like you've got a fan.
Terrence is part of our crew, CLS crew. Terrence,
Awesome.
what's up?
Awesome. So, Teddy, thank you so much for being here. I really hope you had a restful holiday break. And if I saw correctly, I did a little snooping. You had some exciting things happen recently.
Yeah. So November of 22, my wife and I, we had our first son, Frederick, named after my late father. So that was pretty special. And he's been just a bundle of joy. And they say the first baby is a trick baby because they're trying to encourage you to have a second, which the second they say is a monster, but they're trying to allude to the fact that it's easy to have a kid. But I can tell you there's been some pretty late nights, pretty early mornings. So
yeah, well, that's standard. Yeah, I've got 3 boys. So
nice.
If you have any questions about what it's like from one to the next,
of course, I'm gonna solicit some information from you.
Absolutely. Sure. And what you stated about trick baby, ours was a trick baby 100%.
See, it's true. It's true. It's it's not just they're just not saying that. It actually is. But no, he's been pretty easygoing. We've been blessed to have him in our life now. He's just turned 2 months old. And I vowed I wasn't going to be the parent that tracks by the months. He's either a year and 6 months, 12 months, but I'm not going to do like 18. He's 21 and a half months old. I'm just not going to do that. So
yeah. Yeah. I will say I was with you there. I always was like, why are we doing this like by the month? Now, I guess it makes sense when it comes to like your behind the scenes stuff, to making decisions on clothing and this and that.
Sure.
But your kid is also going to be off the mark there too, because they're either going to be smaller or bigger than their recommendation. And yeah.
And the recommendation is like a 3-month window too. It's like 3 to 6 months. It's like, okay, I guess he's gonna, fit into it. But
right.
So he's already started to laugh and smile. So which has been pretty awesome to witness and kind of see him develop. He's already grown immensely in the last 2 months. So,
well, that's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you and your wife.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, having kids, it's a part of our story in general, right? And it impacts us in a lot of ways. It changes who we are because it opens our eyes to
for sure
a new part of life, and also how you balance your time and all the things. So yeah, it's a big deal. It definitely changes things, and it changes like your availability for things too. It's like, well, now I gotta go to things for my kid.
Yeah, definitely. It changes the priorities of your life, right? So you just have to prioritize differently and make sure he's a part of that. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm excited that we have a little crew that's trickled on so far, and they're active in the chat, and that's all good. We've got Terrence, whom Emily Hunn, maybe you know her.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie Anderson. She's been great and is going to be on the show in a few months as well.
Yeah,
So
she's saying she's a mom of 4, so she understands.
Yep. And she's great because she's very authentic in like how it impacts her and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
let's get real, people.
No, I appreciate everyone joining. Amber, welcome. So some of these folks that are joining are from previous lives, Evan.
Oh yeah. We've built a boss talk family, a little community, and it's been awesome.
No, absolutely. It's great.
Yeah, we got Amber and Lori. They've all been guests, and
awesome.
So really happy to be a part of that and be able to meet all these great people, honestly. So
absolutely.
But I want to kick it off before we really get into the nitty-gritty, the really the professional stuff. I just want to ask a few questions, just kind of warm things up. So one, I used to ask these at the end, but I figured, it's a great way to
break the ice,
kick it off, break the ice, get things loose.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So one of the things I like to ask is, for you personally, how do you like to build community, whether that's professionally and or personally in your life?
Yeah, so building community, I think, goes hand in hand with making a specific rapport with folks that you're interacting with. Like when I was like on the local site of property management, when I was on the day-to-day operations, more or less, it was more about knowing your residents' names or the people that you've been interacting with on a consistent basis on your property. And it kind of just lends itself to be a different conversation that, when you have an issue with a resident or something like that, it tends to go over a little bit better because you've already established that rapport. So I would say, knowing people by their first name, greeting them, asking about their day, taking an interest in kind of what's going on in their life kind of tends to build that community a little bit faster than as if, you were a general manager and just stayed in your office and hopefully paid the bills to the property. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, being that you're in the student housing world and have been for quite some time, I imagine building community with a specific age group with people that are new to living away from home is important so that they have a semblance of respect for the property.
Absolutely. And I guess that goes hand in hand with, business development, establishing those relationships, knowing that, they can reach out and you've established that, that line of communication. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Fostering that sense of respect for your property, they're more likely not to do something that affects the asset if they know, hey, Teddy knows me, or they know me. Why would I want to set forth that experience upon them?
Yep, so, definitely. Yeah. Well, great. And then tied to kind of building community, having a meal with people is a great way to do that and get to know people. So if you were to have somebody over for dinner, what would you make for them?
I am a big fan of ribeye steaks.
Okay.
My brother got us a grill for our wedding gift. So that's sitting on the back patio. Even though it's in Kansas, there are certain days of the year in which we do have good weather. The negative 25 cold snap that we had, a couple weeks ago was really bad. That's probably the coldest it's ever been that I've ever experienced. But I can be up there with the grill masters. Medium rare, ribeye, or your preference of steak or chicken. Definitely, it'd be a grilling feast for any guests that came over.
Awesome. I mean, a good barbecue is a great way to gather people.
Kansas City is known for barbecue. That's true. That's the epitome.
That's true.
So, but I mean, if you're ever in town, feel free to stop by. So
awesome. Yes, Midwest. I've been there a few times. I actually started my career in St. Louis working for
Okay.
Purina,
Oh,
selling
Purina.
dog
Yeah.
food. So,
See, I'm originally from St. Louis, but I don't claim St. Louis. I claim Kansas City. Um, but that's for a different podcast.
got it. And then finally, if you were to kick off your day with a cup of coffee, what would you drink?
Yeah, so black with sugar or Splenda. We also have like a little latte machine. I'm kind of spoiled by my wife. She's figured out how to make lattes on our espresso machine. So definitely like a vanilla latte would be a go-to. Yeah.
Nice.
Are you a coffee drinker, Evan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every morning, a black cup of coffee.
Nice.
Although today I did have some oat milk based
Okay.
creamer. I stay away from the dairy. Just
Yeah.
not a fan of dairy. And this person right here can't do it. So I stay away from that.
I feel like it's a staple in the student housing industry that you have to drink coffee if you're in student housing. I think it's very synonymous with, you wake up, you grab some coffee, and you go to work, and you grind it out, but
Yeah.
you need that pickup in the morning. So.
First, you got to grind your coffee before you grind it out.
Exactly. We would have a Starbucks machine at the property, and these machines are, massively expensive, but what a great amenity for the residents to be able to come to the office, grab a cup of coffee, and it's actual Starbucks, like Pike's Place coffee, and that's forcing them out of their apartment, building that community like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And getting them out of their that space. So
sure. Yeah, it's funny. You like coffee. I enjoy coffee. I've had a lot of guests that have not enjoyed coffee, and
Wow.
I am confused by their ability to function in the world without their coffee, but they've powered through, they've made it work. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for participating in those little fun questions. We even got a little bit of debate going here in the comments about coffee and what they like and don't enjoy about that, like Amber.
Yeah.
When I interviewed her, she was like, not a fan of coffee. And I'm like,
yeah, Amber and I used to work together at
okay.
in a former life. So great.
Well, I mean, when you talk real estate, multifamily, property management, and then you talk student, the world shrinks down to like
small industry.
Yeah. So I'm sure you guys all know each other.
Oh yeah. These are good friends, past acquaintances. Yeah. Former colleagues, current colleagues, so really, really great people.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kick off by just kind of hearing a little bit about your story, how you started, how you got to where you are, and kind of some learnings for you along the way.
Sure. Believe it or not, real estate was by accident. It was not something that I had even really considered. My undergraduate, I was doing biology and chemistry, and
Wow.
my parents wanted me to go to med school, and from an Egyptian family, there's a lot of pressure from parents, and probably people of the same culture and of the Eastern culture probably feel that from their parents, that they have a set expectation in their mind, and then they're wanting you to execute on that. And that doesn't necessarily end up being the case most of the time, because there's some rebellion there. It's like, well, I don't want to go to med school,
Yeah.
But I had always enjoyed the sciences, biology and chemistry, did my undergrad in both. And then to kind of help out, I was working on campus. I was part of the residential life team at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Started off as a resident assistant, just, making sure that, our floor at the residence hall was, somewhat catered to, taking care of the residents, being a resource for them, pretty easygoing. I mean, it wasn't really, you get a stipend, and then you got some rent taken off your room and board. So it was like a win-win. It was like, yeah, I like interacting with people, kind of being a resource. And it quickly developed into something much bigger than I ever, even imagined. It ended up helping people that were going through mental illness. It was helping people, deal with issues that they had, both academically, personally. So that resource, what they had advertised was just being a resource, but it really turned out to be more than that. And I made some really lifelong friends in that aspect. And to tell you the truth, it was like the greatest thing that could have ever happened. So that quickly turned into me kind of investigating what is this, managing on-campus housing. What does that really actually mean? And I ended up understanding that that's higher education, higher education with an emphasis in student affairs. Student affairs being helping out students with any aspect or any affair, any issue that they may have at the university level, right? So managing on-campus housing, and I understood that there was a master's degree that was offered at the university. It was a 2-year degree, right? And I had already been working at the university. So the university said, hey, we're going to pay for 75% of your master's degree if you go ahead and you go this route. I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
Let me just take one class and understand whether or not this is of interest, right?
Right.
And I took a student development theory class, very, very much theory based, and the development of the student and what it takes to take a student from one section of their life to the next. And I mean, the rest is history. I fell in love with student housing, student affairs, and it really higher education is an aspect of all of those combined. I mean, people go into education and teach at the university level. They work on the administrative side of the university, but then there's also residential life that is an aspect of that industry. So I ended up, being at the university, finishing up my master's, graduating with my master's, and implementing what I had learned and the previous experiences into managing the on-campus housing for the university. Ultimately spent another couple of years there, and we actually opened a brand new apartment complex on the University of Missouri Kansas City campus, and helped with private public partnerships and the liaison between the university and the private management company that was set to manage the property. And that was really my first introduction to privatized student housing. And what we were able to do is, fill it up and really create a good relationship with the university. And then the university ended up buying the property. So it was, stay in Kansas City or kind of open up and understand what other challenges and opportunities are out in the United States. So I ended up, moving from Kansas City to Bloomington, Indiana, which was a distressed property. Ended up learning a lot about that distressed property and how to effectively create change within the property, not even cosmetically, Evan, just more from a transformation of how to turn around an asset without really spending money cosmetically. Like, what do we do at the surface to really implement change from a resident standpoint, for example? So I went from Kansas City to Bloomington, Indiana, corrected that issue. They wanted me to go down to Arlington, Texas, went down there for a couple of years. Morgantown, West Virginia, huge asset there. All along the way, either switching a company or getting promoted in the meantime. I was up in Eugene, Oregon, had a great opportunity up there. I just actually got off the phone yesterday with a former owner of mine that was up in Eugene. He was checking in to see how everything was going. Those are the relationships that I'm talking about, that when we're going through these life cycles, we're continuing to hold on to those relationships, even though they're not they're not on a professional standpoint anymore. But
Yeah.
ending up in Lawrence, Kansas, finally, and I got recruited to the Lawrence, Kansas property. And really, what the recruiter had indicated was this owner needs a home run from someone that needs to turn this asset around.
Hmm.
And without really knowing what it all entailed, I knew that I needed to get kind of closer back to family. Dad wasn't doing well at the time, and I got closer to St. Louis, right? Just a 3.5 hour drive from Kansas City. So I decided to go that route and be able to kind of be closer to campus, knowing that I may be ending up in Kansas City someday. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of where we're here today. The same company that I started with 7 years ago is the same company I'm with today, Campus Life and Style. And I started with them before they even actually started. I was with their ownership group for a little bit, and then he had created his own in-house management company to kind of bring out the best of the best and really, really create such a powerful management company that really brings a lot of things to light
Yeah.
and do well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like you really learned along the way ways to
Sure.
really fix properties, ways to turn them around, and also to um, I think what you mentioned previously is like a secret sauce, so to speak,
Yeah.
both in your company, but for you yourself also learning how to bring out the best in your people, which then
Mhm.
impact your
Correct. Yeah.
communities. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and your company and kind of
Yeah.
what you've learned.
Yeah. So Campus Life and Style, founded in 2016. We just had our 7th birthday here in January. So a fairly young company by all of the statistics associated with everyone else in property management, the businesses, and all the other property management companies in the industry. 7 years is still pretty young.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to kind of touch on is the experience that backs up CLS is really unmatched, Evan. My wife, she works for Farmers Insurance. And if you know the tagline, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, right? Um, Really kind of emits the style by which CLS handles things because they've seen it, they've lived it. The experience that backs up CLS is unmatched. Like I said, you got Jim Shoulders, you got Dan Shopey, you got Gary Dancy. These are the folks that helped take ACC public, American Campus Communities, right? The largest property management company, now Blackstone. These are the people that made ACC a powerful voice in student housing, right? It's like recruiting the founders of Apple to your startup.
Hmm.
Can you imagine that? It's like, hey, founders of Apple, come help me build my company. And they're ecstatic to do so, right? That's what Elliot Tamir, he's our founder and co-founder of Vesper Holdings. And he's the one who had started CLS. He had recruited Jim and Dan and Gary, which are really and Jessica Nix, which is our chief marketing officer. Those are your pillars. Those are the initial pillars of CLS. Unmatched experience. That's really what I can say. And those folks had similar stories to myself. They came up through the ranks. Jim Shoulders, which is our CEO for Campus Life and Style, he was an RA just like myself. Started on that foundation, understood that helping students throughout the hard times, throughout their education, triggered something in his life to know that, hey, student housing is what I want to go after, right? I want to help build properties, build communities, just like you said before. So, that's kind of the background on CLS.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I know that a big part of what you really preach is things around hospitality and
Mm-hmm.
almost more treating these communities more like a hotel experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we can kind of dive into the secret sauce, right? And if our listeners have a piece of paper, I'd write these three things down, because these are what is actually driving success at CLS, and you can implement at your property. And if you want to talk more after the podcast, we're more than happy to do that. But really, CLS has a division of CLS called Hospitality and Training. I don't know of any other student housing property management company that has a division of hospitality, right? So that should tell you how important hospitality is to our brand, our mission, to what we do at CLS. So the first aspect of the secret sauce, Evan, and you want to write this down: anticipatory service, which falls in line with hospitality, right? Today, our customers, our students, our parents, they're well traveled. They're not like the students of the past, in which they're going from high school straight to college, right? These students are either taking time off to travel the world, they're going to Europe, they're studying abroad before, taking that first semester to study abroad. They are well traveled, and their parents are well traveled. They're going to the 5-star hotels. They're understanding that hospitality is going to set an expectation, so that when they come to your student housing property, there's the set forth expectation that they should be treated a certain way, right? And so they have a lot of options when it comes to student housing, right? And where they live. And some of the hospitality elements that CLS has incorporated into their properties show our customers that they are respected than your typical student housing property that may be, a C class or a B class product, right? Not only do we appreciate our students, the parents also, you have to strike a nerve with the parents and tell them that obviously we're going to take care of your son or daughter. This ultimate dynamic shift into hospitality translates into better reviews, translates into better renewal percentages, better online presence. Instead of waiting for a customer to bring an issue to our management team, we're 2 steps ahead of the customer, right? That's what anticipatory service is. In our business, anticipating the needs of our guests can mean the difference between whether or not you're securing that lease or they're going somewhere else to take their business, right? And in some of these markets, that's the name of the game. That's part of the secret sauce. Making yourself so attractive that you understand what they need before they even need it, is key. And I'll give you an example. You go out to dinner and you're at a 5-star restaurant, and the waiter brings you an ice water. You didn't ask for the ice water, but the ice water is good to go, ready to go for you. That's anticipatory service. Understanding that your customer may be a little thirsty, they're looking at the menu, and just knowing that they're going to probably ask for a water. And even if they don't, it's just cordial of you to just do so. And it's as simple as that in regards to anticipatory service. So our team, just to elaborate a little bit more, is trained. There's fundamentals and a curriculum that is set by our training department on hospitality. Every single month, there's a curriculum, and anticipatory service is one of those. And then we dive into different aspects of hospitality every single month of the year. So it's not like it's one and done. It's a repetitive understanding of how to treat our customer day in and day out. So every single week they have part of that curriculum that fits into that overall topic. And then from month to month, that is That is the basis of the training.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so anticipatory service. What are the other I guess pillars or that go with that?
Yeah. So there's another one that is like beat the greet. Someone comes into your office and you stand and welcome them before they can even say hello to you.
Okay.
Same thing as if you're walking on your property and you pass a resident, and you're the GM or you're the leasing manager, and you just walk past the resident and you don't say a word to them. That's kind of awkward, right?
Right.
You say, hey, Terrence, how's your day? It's a different dynamic, right? So you're saying hello, you're beating the greet. Before they can say anything to you, you say hello to them.
Especially if you know their name.
Especially if you know their name. But if you don't, introduce yourself. Understand, how's their day going? Oh, I haven't seen you on the property. Who are you? Like,
Right.
Who are you? So,
and honestly, it makes for an environment of like, it also increases safety, honestly. Like knowing who's there and whether they belong. Who are you come here to see? Like, not that you want to interrogate during that, but
no.
But when people, it's one of those things like when you're in a retail environment and you talk to somebody, it's part of loss prevention. Greeting people makes them, they're like, oh, they saw me.
Exactly.
That means, oh, I can't get away with something
they know I exist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The other aspect, and I may have alluded that it's just office, but maintenance is also included into this hospitality training, and
Good.
that helps because really the big question is, how's your maintenance? Like when I have a problem, are they going to respond? So communication back to the customer. They're also learning about how to treat the customer from a work order standpoint, because really at the end of the day, maintenance has more interaction with your resident
100%.
than anybody else at your property.
Absolutely.
And I know that makes sense, but until I said it, it's quite fascinating, right? Because they're entering the units more times than not. They're doing quarterly inspections. They hear from the resident, and sometimes they're creating that rapport that's very much needed with the resident as well.
Yeah. I made I don't know if this is bold, but I was able to give my 2 cents on like what I thought were trends in 2023, and one of them was a highlight and a spotlight on maintenance, and a big part of that is focusing on training them in customer service and maybe hospitality, because in order to retain people in your community, you have to make the people that are in maintenance more important, because they are important, but they need to know that they're important.
Absolutely.
Because so often they probably feel like they're kind of like on the back burner of importance.
Absolutely.
But they're really an important aspect. Yeah, you're leasing people and property manager may get you in the door, but who's going to keep you there?
Sure. No, absolutely. And you're alluding to the second secret sauce, which is attention and focus to your customer. So it's great that you've anticipated their needs, but then you have to act on it, right? So attention and focus to your customer. When a customer or a resident comes into your office, tells you that there's an issue, how long does it take you to respond, right? Whether it be by email, whether it be by, a parent's calling in, it's that attention and that focus and that promptness is what triggers whether or not that resident is going to have a good experience. There's issues every single day in Class A properties, Class B properties. Doesn't matter if you're the brand new asset on the block. New construction has issues. It's about how you respond and how quickly you can handle the concern at hand. So,
yeah, very true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are those the 3?
One more.
One more.
So one more. Executing and providing support to the asset that has issues. So, for example, we have our owned properties at CLS, and then we have our third-party management side, which I'm the National Director of Business Development for a third-party side, in which other owners have solicited CLS to manage their property for them, right? On the own side, we own and manage our own properties. So we don't take on deals on the management side unless we have the bandwidth to do so. Evan, it's like we want to keep the quality control at the highest it possibly can be. So it's not just about growing our brand, it's about treating it with quality as well. So we treat all of our properties the same, whether it be owned or third party, at the same level. We wake up every morning trying to take a look at what properties need support. And so it's one way to say, hey, we're going to plan on doing X, Y, and Z, but you actually have to execute on that vision. You have to execute on that plan. And so we put 110% towards the assets that need attention. We load it up with support initially, get it stabilized, and then hopefully you can back off some of that support because it's been stabilized. Nice. And that really creates the good foundation for kind of what drives success at the student housing side. So
yeah, got it. So when it comes to, because a big part of your job is developing the business, right?
Correct.
So how do you approach that in light of you want to control quality? You don't want to grow too big, too fast, because that definitely diminishes quality sometimes. So how do you approach that?
Yeah. So our training team, and we have a good talent base at CLS. Really, the only reason we actually started to go into third-party management is because we had such a robust amount of talent at CLS, and we wanted them to be challenged. And so we have promoted a lot of folks from within on the management side, and that has allowed us the ability to take on more challenges on the third-party side. But like I said, we've turned deals away, and we've turned those opportunities away sometimes for the mere fact that the timing was just wrong, and we didn't want any of our properties to suffer, both owned and third party. So it's a very delicate conversation to be had with our operations team, and understanding how much flexibility we have and how much more bandwidth we have. So we work really closely with our operations team and our executive team to really understand how much more business we can take.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then from a non-traditional standpoint, is that what you're talking about, or is there something more to it?
Yeah. So actually, prior to us having a third-party division, I had made reference that there's a non-traditional business development piece that has really been really beneficial for CLS. And so prior to having a third-party division, I was working on the business development side of the leasing, right? So all 52 properties, I would help generate additional relationships at the site level. So I would go and I would travel out to a number of different properties that may or may not have a more challenging market, right? And I'd visit with the dean of students at the university. I've had the pleasure of visiting with presidents of universities, housing directors, alumni. I mean, it is, just creating those relationships and letting them know that we're out here and we're unlike any other student housing property, because our focus is to maximize the student experience. And again, that goes back to my higher education background, that it's not just a place where you eat and sleep. It's about the total educational experience that you receive when you come to live at our asset or live at our property, our community. You're going to get X, Y, and Z from us versus, just a name on a roster, or, you're just, a rent check to somebody else, right? What's the differentiating factor for you living with us? It's that community that we build at our assets. So that non-traditional business development, I mean, we've been able to really create some really long-lasting relationships that have really been really fruitful in some really tight markets. Visiting with student organizations and being able to give back to student organizations for the amount of people that they have living with us at our properties, we've been able to donate a lot of money to those student organizations. So, organizations like the Indian Graduate Student Association, right? They put on a lot of, resources, and they put on a lot of resources for their students that are coming from India, that may or may not understand the American culture. So they help those Indian students kind of get their footing from when they come into the United States to, what's it mean to, open a bank account and, get started. You're in the United States, and that can be culture shock. So that organization does a great job, and we support them. That is at our property in College Station, the London. We have a long-lasting relationship with them. And, every year we say, hey, we're going to donate X amount of money as a part of our sponsorship agreement with them. So if you can imagine, you're doing that across the board, 52 properties, you're creating these relationships with fraternities and sororities, different student organizations, both, cultural, religious, non-religious, and, when I was in college, I was, a part of at least like 2 or 3, student organizations, as probably you were as well. And for someone to be able to advocate and support it both financially and from a marketing standpoint, those relationships really pay off from a leasing standpoint.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
really empowering the local staff to be able to see how can we support the local student body in different ways.
Absolutely. We jumpstart the conversations. The local team takes it from there.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's having an impact locally.
Absolutely. And yeah, local impact. You're helping the community. You're helping the university in some regard as well, depending on what their needs in regards to housing is. Sometimes you're able to execute on group rates. So sometimes, if they're able to bring 10 or more people or 20 or more people at a time to your community, maybe sometimes you're able to offer them a discounted price because they're bringing X amount of traffic your way.
Interesting. So like a student organization, you could say, hey, your club,
Absolutely.
if you're able to get your club members to come over here to this community, we'll give you all 10% off per month or whatever.
Yeah. And you would do that consistently so that it's fair and equitable across the board. You say any organization that brings 20 or more people, this is your price, right? Because now you're becoming a partner. You're being a supportive aspect of our property. And, Evan, sometimes what happens is it's, folks that are, it's just surprising to me that, sometimes we'll have a fraternity house that's right next door to our property, and they are at capacity, and they're like racking their brains. What are we going to do? It's like, hey, we will give you an entire, floor, or we'll give you an entire building that can be an extension of your house, and then your community is that much bigger, and then you're able to recruit and tell people about your fraternity or sorority and some of the philanthropic, initiatives that you have as a fraternity and sorority organization. So we've done that in Kansas. We've done that in Virginia. Really great aspect to doing it that way as well.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Absolutely.
It's really cool. There was one last thing, building real estate value. I don't know if that kind of brings the whole bit together, but if you wanted to touch on that briefly.
Yeah. So CLS, all of our team members, they're experts in repositioning properties that build real estate value for both our owned and our third party owned properties. Our ability to turn around assets is really at the highest that I've ever seen in all of my experience. CLS has the ability to take a property that's not relevant, right? Pretty dated, 70s, 1980s vintage, in comparison to the market, do a major retrofit to it, rebrand it, rename it, and reintroduce it to the market at a great value and a great price, and make it relevant again. This both helps the investors achieve the intended investment value and return that they were expecting, right? And CLS has been really great at executing that for its owners and for its third-party owners as well. All of the pieces that we spoke about, the secret sauce, the hospitality, the taking care of your residents, all of that plays into that real estate value, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to share something that you all may or may not know when you're talking about budgets and saving money. Here, I'm going to write this out for you. Your NOI, which is the money that you've generated at the end of your budget, your net operating income, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take that and you divide that by a cap rate, and people say, what's a cap rate, right? A cap rate is what the property is selling at in your market. So different cap rates can be 4%, 5%, 6%. And it depends on what the market is selling at, right? Typical average is 5.5% cap rate. And so when you talk about $100, okay, at the end of your budget, you've saved $100. Wow, really great. But that is a 25x value to your bottom line sales price. So if your property was, worth $1 million, right? It's for sale on $1 million, and you saved $1,000, you can tack on an additional $25,000 to your sale price. 25x whatever you bring down to the bottom line. And that's a 4 cap. A 5 cap would probably be closer to 20x. So the higher the cap rate, the lower the value. Lower the cap rate, higher the value, right? So when we're talking about, reducing expenses or increasing revenue, those are the pieces that investors are looking at. When you're able to reduce expenses at your property, you're able to increase that value by 20 to 25x the value. And it's like, big deal. I saved $5,000, but $5,000 savings on an NOI standpoint is a $125,000 price tag addition to whatever you're selling your property at. So that's why building real estate value, controlling your expenses, controlling your revenue, and increasing your net operating income is important from building a real estate value.
Interesting. Well, now I know how to pitch my product.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, how much value is Community Boss bringing to the table? Like, what kind of expense structure? How are you saving money for the property? And if your product is, let's say, $100 a month, it's going to cost you $1,200 per year. But what kind of savings is that counteracting, right?
Or revenue it's bringing in.
Exactly. So pretty exciting stuff when we're talking about building real estate value. And you're going to see not a lot of property management companies talk about that. They are just doing par, right? They're not smashing the goals, right? And so the dynamic at CLS is that we want to do the best of the best. You say, hey, we need to be at 95%. We're striving for 100.
Nice.
It's pretty awesome.
It's awesome. Well, I'm glad you found a good fit for you, and that your skill set is being utilized in a big way there. So
absolutely,
super excited for you. I did have a question to share.
Sure.
So Michelle, I'm not sure if you know her, but she jumped on, and she's jumping into the student housing world, new to it, and would love to know if you might have some advice.
Yeah, you want to read it off for us?
Yeah. So she says she's just curious to know how CapEx and construction projects are managed or tracked in student housing. Systems or tools are used.
Yeah. So we have some really great staff on our facilities side. Our vice president our senior vice president of construction and facilities, Santiago Corres, really is the he is the pivotal point that really makes sure everything is running smoothly on our construction piece. We have a number of tools on the CapEx side, both property specific and corporate specific, that are used. More or less, it's a really data driven spreadsheet that really takes into accountability how much money has been spent and what money is to be spent. And there's just a lot of accountability associated with making sure that you're only spending the money you have and not going over budget on those projects. But to that question, it doesn't do you any justice to perform a CapEx project that's not going to build that value back into your property. It's like, great, there are some things that are definitely you need to do, like restripe and repave the parking lot, right? For example, how much value does that bring to the property? Probably very little. I mean, customer service, thank you for not, having potholes all over your property. But is there something else that you could do from a value add standpoint, right? Solar panels, security cameras, right? Other utility saving mechanisms, like LED lights at your property, which would drive down your utility costs. Those are real savings that occur immediately. And I bet, Evan, you probably have some ideas from value add savings with your product, right?
Absolutely. So we have the ability to generate revenue through your parking and through your amenities.
Yeah.
So you can paid guest parking, if you have retail parking, paid retail parking, overnight guest parking, all with the mindset of being fair and only doing it in a way that, is still customer service centric, but
Sure.
still a great way to. We've got properties making $5,000 per month on parking.
$5,000 that they didn't have before. So, I mean, that's
Absolutely.
really, what is that, 60 grand per year that they hadn't seen before, right?
Yeah.
What's 60 grand times 20x?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money. That's the additional price tag that the ownership could sell the property for.
Right.
And so when you're coming to sell the property, I know the debt markets are really bad right now, but it's really hard to buy a property because there's a lot of inflation of those numbers. But when you can actually show, hey, you didn't have 5,000 before, and I created $60,000 worth of revenue with very minimal expense to get that 60K.
Right.
Community boss costs X, but I made 60K.
Right.
The delta is, Y. It's a no-brainer sometimes.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Teddy, it's been awesome. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing some insight into not only what your company's currently doing, some nuggets that people can learn from, that they can really apply to their job directly. I think, what you guys are doing is very much in line with some of the books I've read regarding hospitality and really giving a great experience to people from a customer service standpoint. So if you jumped on late, make sure you listen back and hear some of the little nuggets that Teddy shared, because they're great.
And Evan, I'll leave everyone with this. CLS is more than happy to jump on a call if you're an owner or you're someone that is entering a market that you may or may not understand fully. Our team, our experience, we've been in almost every market in the United States at one point in our life, not as CLS, but just as professionals. If you have a question about a market, we'd love to jump on a call and just kind of brainstorm, what have you heard about that market? It educates us, in real time on what's going down on the ground, as well as we're able to kind of share our insight about certain markets and certain property asset classes. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for offering yourself.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for everybody that jumped on and participated, asked questions, and we really do appreciate everyone that did that and stayed through the whole the whole live. So it always makes for a great show when we have some guests participating. Just like Teddy jumped on Boss Talks, you too can jump on and be a guest. I want to know what you're passionate about, what you have to offer, what have you learned along the way. And I don't care what your title is. We all have a story and we all have something to share to this industry. So by all means, reach out to me and we'll get on a call and we'll make it happen. Till
Thank
next
you, Evan.
Wednesday, Boss Talks will be back. And thank you for listening.
Special thanks. Appreciate it, Evan.